For over 8 years, I was stuck as a global director. I always worked in a male-dominated industry, industrial, infrastructure, construction, and transportation. And very often, I was the very few female in the room, the only Asian, the youngest in the team, and living abroad in Europe. To make it harder, I've always had a quiet, more introverted personality. And for a very long time, I always heard the leadership advice, you need to be authentic. So here I was, misunderstanding authenticity as staying consistent in every situation, saying what I really thought, and holding on tightly to who I already was. But that version of authenticity actually kept me stuck. Looking back, this was one of the main reasons I stayed as a director for 8 long years. Once I realized that the real blocker wasn't really my company, my boss, the language, the foreign country I lived in, or even my gender or my age, it was being authentic to my old self. Things changed. Less than a year later, I was promoted to the Vice President of Region Asia. And a year later, I was hired as the Global Vice President at one of the largest Swedish companies by market cap and back to Belgium. In this video, I want to share why those authenticity mindset and advice are misleading, how they damage your career growth, and how to break free from them so you can step into the senior leadership role that you have been preparing yourself for. Now let's start with the first authenticity trap. That is, authenticity equals locking yourself into labels. So how does that look like? It is believing authenticity means staying loyal to the labels you have already given to yourself. And these labels might sound like I'm introvert, I'm not political, I'm not good at networking, and for years I carried my own labels, thinking these are who I am and these are my values. And in reality, they boxed me in. For example, I would told myself I was an introvert. The story felt safe and familiar. And I wasn't outspoken in meetings because I often felt people around the table were smarter than me. Even when I had a really good point to make, I doubted whether it was even worth mentioning it because everyone had already thought about it. I prefer the one-on-one conversations over large groups because in big settings, I often felt invisible, like my voice would get lost, or I wasn't quick enough to jump in the discussion. And in small conversations, on the other hand, I felt safer and more able to connect with the other person. And I always avoided informal networking. This is what I was telling myself. It wasn't for me. I'm way more productive to go back to my hotel room and reply emails. Now, what if I cannot escape these after-work drinks or big conferences? I would stand there with a drink in my hand. I wasn't sure how to break into conversations with others. I felt like everyone else was effortlessly connecting while I was just waiting it to be over. But life stretched me. I moved across continents and countries multiple times. I chaired global teams across over 30 countries, and I navigated constant travel and team dinners. Through these experiences, I realized it wasn't about being an introvert or extrovert. It was about asking, who do I need to become in this moment? And the same applies to any label you give to yourself. The more tightly you hold on to that label, the more you miss opportunities to grow into the leader you could be. Labels could feel like clarity, but they are actually cages. They keep you repeating the same behavior even when the situation calls for evolution. Senior executives, they are not chosen because they stay consistent to an old identity. They're chosen because they show adaptability and readiness for the future. As I mentioned earlier, it's not about being an introvert or an extrovert. It's about asking, who do I need to become in this very moment? Now let me give you some examples of myself. Sometimes it's the Asian voice in a global room where I felt the weight of representing a different perspective, knowing that if I stayed silent, no one else could bring that angle forward. And sometimes what it means to me is to become the connector at a dinner table. So having these small talks that I used to avoid, but realizing that those casual conversations often build the strongest trust and open unexpected doors. And sometimes that's motherhood side of me, voice a boundary to my colleagues and tell them that I need to fly home by Thursday night during a business trip. And saying it out loud felt awkward at first. It also felt against my hardworking label, but it also shaped that the senior leader version of myself who can draw the lines that protect your life. And when I do this, something changed. Sometimes I feel like an extrovert, and other times, not at all. As Carol Dweck writes in her book, Mindset, Becoming is better than being. Being is a fixed identity. I'm an introvert. I'm not political. I'm just this type of leader. Becoming, on the other hand, it's about growth. I can show up differently when the moments ask for it. And with that mindset, that shift allowed me to evolve, adapt, and grow because identity isn't fixed, it's fluid. But even if you break free from labels, you can still fall into the second trap, staying loyal to your old identity even after you have outgrown it. And here's what it looks like for ambitious leaders. You work incredibly hard, you deliver the result. You take on large-scale, complex assignments, but you don't spend time promoting yourself or positioning yourself for the next level. Why? Because you believe my work should speak for itself. If I keep delivering, the company should recognize me. That's how I got to where I am today. And that's how the next opportunity will come as well naturally. So what does that look like? For example, staying laser focused on execution and delivery while neglecting improving executive presence to show that you are VP ready, you are GM ready, or you are SVP ready. You're avoiding self-promotion because it feels inauthentic, political, and not really who I am. You believe that being recognized should be automatic if you perform at the high level. So you spend 100% of your energy on doing the work and 0% on amplifying the impact. This mindset keeps you in comfort. You are authentic to your hardworking self, and you are not evolving into the leader who can inspire, influence, and shape directions at the executive level. Because senior executives, they are not promoted only for delivering results. They are promoted for creating visibility, influence, and confidence across the organization. Very likely, these are your inner voice. I don't need to play politics. My results should be enough. If I promote myself, that's not who I am. I'm not being authentic. This mindset feels safe, even noble. You believe integrity means letting your work shine on its own, and you see self-promotion as fake, manipulative, and political. Now here's the reality. Your hard work and results are seen by only a handful of people. Your manager, maybe a few close peers, and the team you lead. But decision makers higher up, the manager of your manager, for example, the peer of the manager of your manager, they don't see the late nights, the complex problems you solved, and the value you created. Because at the end of the day, work doesn't speak for itself, people speak. And if you don't shape the story of your impact, others either will not see it at all, or they will define it in a way that keep you boxed in. Here's the gap this creates. You feel like you are doing everything right, high performance, high integrity, high result, but your reputation is dependable executor but not strategic executive. Your personal brand becomes invisible to decision makers who could champion you into these senior leadership positions. As we discussed earlier, becoming is better than being. The fixed mindset does not allow people the luxury of becoming. They have to already be. Here is what being looks like, the fixed mindset, where you understand authenticity as comfort. You act as though your current hardworking self is all you can ever be. You stay focused on being good at delivery, hoping that's enough. But being is an endpoint. It keeps you locked in place. Becoming, however, is the growth mindset. They are the leaders who stretch into visibility, influence, and signaling executive readiness, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. But they embrace the challenges and frame themselves as someone evolving into the next level. By holding on to being, you look stable but not promotable. By leaning into becoming, you show decision makers that you are ready for the future, not just reliable in the present. Working hard is important, but if you don't evolve into someone who signals executive readiness, you are stuck being instead of becoming. When I realized that being authentic to my hardworking self was what kept me stuck, I made some changes. For example, I reframed my self-promotion as leadership. For years, I thought being quiet and humble was a strength, that being the person who just gets things done was just enough. And I learned that at the executive level, visibility is part of the leadership. I started positioning myself as VP ready, and that meant changing how I communicated results. Less about details of execution, more about vision, strategy, influence. And also, I stopped showing up only as the operator and began showing up as the leader who could shape decisions. I also on purpose built visibility with decision makers. I stepped outside of my comfort zone as an introvert and looked for opportunities to present at senior forums and cross-regional meetings. I made sure the people who decided promotion could actually see me. This wasn't about changing my personality. It was about evolving my identity, just like you. For a long time, I was proud of being the quiet, reliable person who always delivered the result. In fact, this was exactly what the business unit president once told me, and I remembered so well. This is what he said. "You are my Amazon delivery guy. Every time I open my door, your package is there." And at the time, I was even proud of that feedback. But looking back, I understood exactly I was stuck. Now, even leaders who learn to promote themselves, they often fall into the next trap, which is believing authenticity means saying whatever is on your mind. You might think, if I don't share everything, I'm not being real. So you communicate openly, sometimes too openly, even in situations where influence and framing matters most. This is the next mistake. Authenticity equals saying whatever you think. Many leaders confuse authenticity with complete transparency. They believe that if a thought comes up, it must come out. No filter, no framing. So here's how it looks like in practice. In promotion discussions, when your manager asks you, why should we promote you? You start listing all the reasons from your own perspective. How hard you worked, how much you sacrificed, and why you feel you deserve a recognition. It's all about you. And in job interviews, when the recruiter asks you, what's your weakness? You give the raw, literal answer. You say things like, I'm bad at delegating. I get frustrated easily when things are too slow. You think you're being honest, but instead you raise red flags about your readiness to lead at scale. And in times of organizational change, for example, when promotions are frozen and jobs are impacted, you talk about your frustration openly. For example, you say things like this: over 200 colleagues here just lost their job, and our company is hiring an expensive management consulting firm costing $10,000 per day. This is unfair. Leadership doesn't value people. And you think people will appreciate your honesty, but it spreads negativity and undermines confidence in you as a leader. I've been there myself. These are the real conversations I had myself. At the senior level, blunt honesty makes you look careless, not credible. If you overshare weaknesses or frustrations, you create doubt about your readiness for bigger responsibilities. And that's why it's not enough to be honest. You need to be strategic with your honesty. Let's go back to the situation where saying whatever you think backfires. And then how you can communicate the same truth in an executive-ready way. Take the job interview, for example. The classic question, what's your weakness? Many leaders answer literally, I'm bad at delegating, I get frustrated easily. And what happens is red flag goes up. Here's another way to say it. One area I've been working on is stepping back from execution. In the past, I would take on too much myself. Over the last year, I put systems in place that allow the team to own outcomes more fully. It's still something that I'm improving, but it has already helped me stay focused on the bigger picture. See how that's still honest, but it shows growth and leadership. Now let's go back to the other example, restructuring. In times of reorganization, promotion freeze, and job cuts, an executive-ready leader does not fall into negativity, or they just express their frustration. Why? Because being negative does not serve anyone. It does not serve you. It does not change the situation. It drags everyone else down with you, on the other hand. Instead, the mindset is about being steady, being intelligent and forward-looking. You could acknowledge the reality. Yes, this is tough. People are disappointed and jobs are uncertain. Let's recognize that openly, because complaining and just being transparent does not change the situation. It only takes away the trust and the morale. A leader's job is to bring stability, not more noise, not more negativity. You want to focus on meaning and ask, what does this moment teach us as leaders? Whether it's resilience, better prioritization, leading through ambiguity, and there's always growth to be found. By staying calm and delivering results now, you build a reputation for resilience and reliability that will pay off when the opportunity really reopens. This isn't about fake positivity. It's about showing that you can hold the weight of uncertainty without collapsing under it. And that's what makes senior leaders trust you with bigger roles. Same honesty, but now you are the one who provide clarity, not just frustration. Think about it this way. When you are convincing your 5-year-old to eat broccoli, you don't just pull out a PowerPoint and explain the health benefit of vitamins, right? You frame it in their word. Maybe you say, this makes you grow strong like a Superman. Now compare that to how you would explain eating broccoli to maybe your spouse, maybe your teenager. Same message, same you, but completely different framing. Now you're not going to use the Superman story, right? And you would never say to yourself, oh no, I'm being fake. I'm not authentic to myself. It's still you. You have just adapted to the audience, so the message lands. That's exactly what executive-ready communication looks like. At a senior level, it's not enough to say what you think. You need to frame what you say so it builds trust and influence with the people in the room. So here's the lesson. Authenticity isn't about dumping everything that's in your head. It's about choosing honesty with impact. At vice president and C-suite levels, people remember how you made them feel more than what you said. And leaders who have good judgment and can speak with influence, that's who gets promoted. And here's the truth. Breaking these habits doesn't happen overnight. It takes guidance and consistency. And most of the time, it takes an outside perspective to help you see what's holding you back. That's exactly why we offered a free strategy call. And on this call, either myself or someone from my team will help you identify the specific habits and blind spots that are keeping you stuck in middle management and show you how to position yourself for that vice president, general manager, or C-suite position. Now, to get most out of this free strategy call, you should be already in a director or team leader role in a large or complex organization. You have an international profile, you are living abroad or have lived abroad, or someone working across regions and globally. And at this moment, you feel you are hitting a plateau in your career and you are ambitious to move into the executive leadership position within the next 6 to 12 months, not someday later. There's also a pre-qualification process to make sure it's the right fit for you so that you walk away with clarity, not general advice. If this sounds like you want to book your free strategy call today, the link is in the description below. Now let me leave you with this video to find out the truth with corporate job titles, especially during reorganization. I will see you there.